Welcome back to Mass Appeal. Have you ever wanted to try and make sourdough bread?
I love eating it.
It's delicious to eat, but you can make it for pennies on the dollar.
You sure can. We're going to show you how with Dory Goldman, owner of Backyard Bakery in Amherst. Dory, we were talking earlier, this is quite a complicated process. So to try to fit into 6 minutes on live TV is almost impossible.
It takes time. Sourdough bread takes a lot of preparation and time to ferment.
And that's the difference. What separates it from regular bread is that there's a fermentation process going on there, and that's where you get the sour taste. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I get it a little bit more. So how does one start? You have a yeast culture going, is that right?
I have a sourdough starter.
Okay.
And this is it. I don't know if you can see it on screen, but it is very, very bubbly inside. In fact, it's overflowing because it's so overly fermented now. So you have this, you can feed your starter with white flour or whole grain flour, whatever you like. I always feed mine with whole wheat flour.
And when you say feeding it, what that is kind of like developing the bacteria, is that right?
Yes, it contains all sorts of bacteria and yeasts and fungi, which it takes out of the air, and all of these feed on the carbohydrates and proteins that are in the grain. And break it down into basic sugars and let out, as you can see, carbon dioxide and acids and alcohols.
So what's the next
sugars.
step after you've developed your starter? What do you do with that?
Then to make the dough, you take the starter.
And how long has this been fermenting for?
This has been, I fed this at about 6 or 7 this morning. Depending on the temperature, it could take anywhere from just a few hours to all day long to ferment.
So it's kind of like having a pet. You have to feed it, you have to remember to take it outside for walks, all that good stuff.
I don't want to think about my sourdough bread is my pet.
No,
then I won't want to eat it.
It does need to be fed
Cared
often.
for.
But if you keep it at a colder temperature, it doesn't need to eat as much.
It reminds me of a Little Shop of Horrors, kind of like you feeding the plant, you know that?
Yes, yes.
All right, so back to the bread. So once you put that in the bowl.
Then water.
Okay.
It already smells good. It's got that sourdoughy smell to it.
It smells amazing, yeah.
And I've measured out my flour.
This is a simple, deceptively simple, because there's not a lot of
salt.
ingredients that go in here. It's salt, a flour, the yeast starter, and water.
Right. So one of the advantages of baking sourdough bread instead of straight yeasted bread is you don't have to knead it very much. All you need to do is mix it up until there's no, lumps or dry flour in there anymore.
Okay, one consistent color, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it takes longer to ferment than yeasted bread, but it all depends on the ambient temperature of your room, or if you put it in a warm place, or you can even put it in a cold place deliberately, like into the refrigerator, and it takes a really long time then. But it allows you the flexibility of baking it when you're ready to bake it.
And then you can have fresh, warm bread whenever you want, not necessarily right then and there if you're not ready for it.
So it's not one of those things that you put directly into the oven. You have to wait. All right.
Right.
All right, so you don't have to knead it too much, like you said, just to mix it together.
That's right.
And then once you do that?
Once you do that, you let it sit and ferment. Like I said, it might be 3 or 4 hours, or maybe less, maybe more, all depending on where you put it, what the temperature is.
So it's kind of like a trial by fire process. You're seeing how long it takes, and it might vary because of depending on the temperature and where you are and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Huh.
Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, right?
No, because you will.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. That's part of the fun. Now, what is this here? How did this get from this stage to this stage?
Now, I should mention that before it gets to this stage, while it's fermenting, you want to go every, say, 3/4 of an hour, every hour, and you want to take it and you're going to stretch it out and fold it over itself, because
you have to babysit it.
Yes.
You have to really watch it.
It's a pet, I'm telling you. It's your sourdough pet bread.
Yeah, it helps the gluten to develop. Now, once the dough is fully fermented, it's like this. It becomes nice and smooth, and it's not sticky and
Did those seeds grow,
anymore.
or did you put them in there?
I just happened to add, this morning I just happened to add flax seeds to this dough.
So that's where the flavor comes. You can add flaxseed, sesame seeds, whatever you like.
Well, sourdough bread will have plenty of flavor without that, but you can always add whatever you like.
Spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Then you put it in the oven, or you put it in the fridge?
Then what I do, once it's all fermented, is I cut it. Here we have enough for 2 loaves. So you shape it into loaves by pulling it in like this and
cool.
rounding it.
You're really good at that. I guess you
Okay.
should be. It's what you do for a living, right?
And then once it's time to put it in the oven, at what temperature and for how long do we like to put it in for?
I like to preheat the oven as hot as it will possibly get.
Really?
And then depending on your oven and how much bread, how many loaves you put in there, you might turn it down somewhat after 20 minutes.
Very cool.
And then you have sourdough bread that you made yourself, took care of yourself. Can we cut the bread?
Absolutely.
Oh, I can't wait
Yes.
to try
Hooray.
this. So much work goes into it. I can't wait to taste it. Dory, thank you so much for sharing this. I know it was difficult to kind of put it into one small, short segment on live TV, but I have to say you did a great job.
Well, thanks
And
very
it
much
looks
for
tasty.
having me on the show.
Thank you for being here. You can get the recipe online at mymassappeal.com later today.